D. Watkins with Salon. Today I'm joined by Kwame Onwuachi. He's one of America's top rising chefs. He's executive chef at the Washington D.C. restaurant Kith and Kin. I ate that. It's amazing. A James Beard Award winner and former top chef contestant. He's joining me today to talk about his great new book, Notes from a Young Black Chef. I really enjoyed the book. It put me in a time where Lil Wayne dropped like 80 mixtapes and I listened to them all.
Oh my God. You couldn't go anywhere without listening to Lil Wayne.
Anyway, Lil Wayne, the trajectory is like crazy, but yeah, it put me in a place, and I really enjoyed the book.
Thank you.
What made you want to come out with this book right now?
Well, you know, I've always been into telling my story in different ways. You know, I did it through food for a long period of time. Then I started doing these speeches to inner city kids, like in New York City, just telling them my story, you know, because I look like them. I also was very young, so I was relatable. And I got invited to do this talk at Bitten. It's a food conference here in the city. And it was the biggest one I've done. It was like for 600 people, and there was a literary agent in the crowd. And she pulled me aside afterwards and said, "This story is incredible.
It's time. Let's do this book."
Yeah, let's do this book. I'm like, wait a minute, how much is it going to cost me? Because I had no idea about any of this. She's like, no. I don't get paid till you get paid.
Yeah, we're going to pay you.
It's like, all right, bet, let's do it.
It's really good, and it's interesting that you said you've been telling your story through food, because food has a history, especially fine dining, of being segregated. So when you would talk to like inner city kids, were they receptive? Like, yo, this guy's making these amazing things? Or?
Absolutely, they were like, you know, sometimes if you see it, you could believe it, and that's what I wanted to do when talking to these children or young adults, you know, just so they can see a different outlet, something that they can aspire to. That isn't the norm or the status quo. It's something that's just completely different.
So Kwame's restaurant is amazing. I've ate there a number of times, and I'm gonna list some of the things that I had that I really enjoyed. Definitely cocoa bread, goat roti, whole snapper, which is like this. It comes out on a plate. It's intimidating, but I think it's made for two people, but a very ambitious person can finish it. Braised cabbage, coconut rice, and then I washed it down with probably too many Caribbean mules and pear punches. Can you talk about how some of these different things that I ate at your place connects to your journey?
Yeah, you know, Kith and Kin has 4 pillars of cuisine: Jamaican, Nigerian, Creole, and Trinidadian. And that's just my background, you know. On my father's side, his mother was Jamaican, his father's Nigerian. On my mother's side, her father's Trinidadian and her mother's Creole. And it's interesting enough that really follows the slave trade, the triangular trade, you know, and
it really does.
And it starts in West Africa, goes to the Caribbean, and goes to the American South. So I wanted to honor that with this restaurant, and that's why it's called Kith and Kin. Kith and Kin means friends and family.
Right. I like how you brought your parents up, because food is in your DNA. So just take us back to some of your earlier memories in your mom's kitchen.
Yeah. So some of my first memories have to do with food. You know, my mother was a chef. Well, she was an accountant turned caterer, and she operated the catering company from our 1-bedroom apartment in the Bronx. So my sister and I had to become her first 2 employees. And that instilled a lot of things in me in an early age: entrepreneurialism, creativity, and a passion for food. You know, and that really formed my career path, you know. But if you go even further back, you know, my grandmother had restaurants in the South. She grew up in Beaumont, Texas. My great-grandmother had restaurants. And, you know, if you trace our roots back to the South, most of us had a restaurant, a bar, because we had to have that in the back of our houses because we couldn't go out and eat.
Right.
So we had the juke joints, you know, we had the fish fry spots, we had the barbecue spots in the back in a little shack in most of our homes, so we could enjoy ourselves without being harassed from Jim Crow.
So you grow up and you pick up these lessons, and you don't even know you're picking these lessons up.
Yeah, I think it's in my DNA a little bit.
It becomes a part of you.
Yeah.
You also knew what you didn't like. One of the stories in the book is you talked about you at a friend's house and you had London broil, which was also new for me, because I mean, I think I'm a foodie, but I never heard of London broil. Like, but I also feel like, you could tell me if I'm wrong, I don't think black people in America eat casserole. Like, I always hear white people talking about it. I never met a black person that say, "Oh my God, my mom makes the best tuna casserole."
My mom did make really good tuna casserole, though. And I really enjoyed it when she made it. But no, I don't. That's not really a thing that people of color really eat.
Right.
Yeah, but
For one as well.
but it's cool. You can learn about different cultures just by eating. My friends were Irish, so they eat London broil and boiled potatoes. That's a thing that they eat, and maybe it wasn't cooked perfectly then, but it just gave me a lens into another culture, another lifestyle.
So you wrote about some tough things you went through with your family as a child. Was that difficult for you to go there?
Yeah, because yes, you have your life, you know your life story and everything, but the stories that you seem to omit when you're talking about, I remember from back in the day, this are the dark times more than none. And you smash them up into a little ball and tuck them somewhere where you don't really have to talk about. And when you're writing about your life, you have to then pull that ball of paper out and unravel it and read through it again. And it's an emotional process.
Did it make you feel like you should be reaching out to like other family members who you haven't been talking to, or different?
Not really.
Revisiting?
No, I mean, it's just my story, and I had to tell it. Yeah, it's like it is what it is at this point. The things happen during the past, but also I've moved on to a point where, I don't want to continue reliving that just by having someone around.
Right. So you've had a lot of success, and with that success has come boatloads of rejection. Could you talk about that? Because I feel like a lot of people today, they look at Instagram and they just see you win, and they don't really see what it took for you to actually become the person who you are.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of no's before you get that yes, and it's a process. You have to keep going. It's funny, a Facebook post popped up on my feed today. It was like 10 years ago you wrote this, and it was like, I have a plan B. The plan B is to stick to plan A no matter how hard it gets. And I think that's what every entrepreneur has to remind themselves. Like, it's just a tough period. Somebody's gonna say yes. I'm gonna get a client. I'm gonna get business. I'm gonna start making money off of this. But we have to get through those hard times and push through in order to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I fear for younger people coming up now, because they don't really get a chance to, I'm happy that you put this out, and there's a lot of people who are talking about some of those hardships, but people really need to see that. Mm-hmm. And also, you being in the culinary world, one of the things that we spoke about briefly before we sat down is the idea of how racist it could be. Mm-hmm. Do you think if you weren't a black kid from the Bronx, or if you were a black kid from Park Avenue or something, then your story would be accepted the same, or?
I'm not sure. I think telling a story, tenacity has something to do with it. So I don't know if it, my upbringing formulated who I am. But if I had those same instinctual characteristics and personality traits, maybe it wouldn't matter where I was born. I would still be doing the same thing that I'm doing now. But my experiences have really shaped me into who I am today.
Yeah, I think a lot of times different big industries, they see young black people, especially from rough situations, and they try to exploit it. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you can spin it into a way where you can create something positive, or you can get lost in the vacuum of what they want you to be.
Exactly.
Now, one of the things, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you really, as a writer, we get to these points, these places where we find our voice. Mm-hmm. And so wherever we sit down in front of pen and a pad or a laptop or whatever, we could just pour. I feel like you found your voice when you did Dinner Lab.
Yeah.
Would you say that?
Absolutely.
So talk about that experience and what that meant for you.
Well, it was my first time really cooking for, I did catering. Worked in restaurants. I worked on the boat in the Gulf of Mexico cooking for people. Mm-hmm. But this is people coming out and me doing a coursed out meal on a nightly basis, mm-hmm. And I was able to, the thing with Dinner Lab is they were brutally honest. There was a comment card on the tables, and they were able to give you direct feedback, and I love getting feedback. So I was able to take that and tweak a couple things and really find my niche and find, my cooking style with that, because I was doing it every single night in mm-hmm. different cities and using different ingredients and different climates. So it was really like real life Top Chef, with ample amount of time to really perfect your craft.
And you felt like you made it through, and that just gave you the opportunity to be able to push forward. And that's but that's before you actually did Top Chef. The Sean Bijou came before Top Chef. So can you walk us through the Sean Bijou and like that whole experience? It seemed like it was a difficult time.
It was. It was also an amazing time. You know, I learned so much. It was a restaurant that I opened in Washington, D.C. It was my first restaurant. It was 30 seats. You know, it was tasting menu only. We took this old Italianate row house and turned it into this beautiful restaurant with this amazing experience. You started in one room, ended up in the kitchen at one point, back in the dining room, back in the kitchen, and it was a sensory experience. But it only lasted 3 months. And I think I was young and not asking the right questions in the beginning of, you know, what is the actual budget? You know, what are we allocating towards furniture? What are we allocating towards kitchen build out? It was just this blank check that was essentially written that couldn't be backed up monetarily.
So why do you feel like so much planning would just go into something that would last 3 months? Is that the food industry, or is it just?
It was the investors, honestly, not having money. I mean, it's easy to run through money in a restaurant, but you know, you should have at least enough capital to get through the year.
It seems like a cool concept. Would you go back and try to redo something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like the same exact way, or?
Not the same way. Not the same way. I definitely want to do a fine dining restaurant again, you know, but something that's a little more approachable, you know, affordable, and can reach a lot more people.
So you're an artist as a chef, but just reading a book and about some of the things that you did in college and how you managed to always make a way, you're a businessman in your own right. Can you talk about artists, like the balance between being an artist and being a person in business? Because a lot of artists don't really get it. We sign horrible deals all of the time.
All the time. All the time. I mean, it's tough. You know, you have to be very... you have to be very thorough in everything that you're doing, you know, and then you have to learn when to let go a little bit, let go of that artistry and put on your business cap, you know. 'Cause at the end of the day, you have to provide for yourself and for your family.
It's difficult. Times. It's difficult when you have to compromise your vision for money.
Absolutely.
It kind of almost taints the product, you think, or?
Sometimes if you let it, but if you let it work for you. For example, Kith and Kin. I never even worked in a restaurant that big, you know, but I was like, man, you know, I have to start from the bottom again, and I have to figure this whole cooking thing out, you know. And I remember my first menu was so intricate, you know, so intricate, and it just wasn't working. Like, I was spending too much money on labor, too much money on products, you know, not enough attention on the things that mattered, and I had to scale back my vision of what the restaurant was in order for it to fit into this mold of what the restaurant is.
So in this book, we kind of get the fallout of Sean Bijou, and you kind of flirt with the idea where you got an email from somebody saying, "Hey, we're trying to do something new at this hotel that's doesn't really exist yet." And but how did that situation come about?
I mean, I was like sitting at home, you know, not doing anything really, and I got someone slid in my DMs, and it was funny because it was the guy's name was Mufasa, so I click on the thing, and it's this white dude, and I'm like, who the fuck is, like, who's fucking with me right now?
I know a lot of
like,
white Mufasas.
I don't know any.
They all play on the Lion King. No, I don't know. I don't know any. I think that was James Earl Jones. No, I don't know any white Mufasas. No,
I didn't know any exist. I don't even know any black Mufasas. So I was like, who's fucking with me right now? My restaurant already closed. Like, you guys want to see me burn more? And so I didn't respond for a month, and then finally I was like, hey, you know, like I just like responded, hey, and he's like, oh my God, can we meet? Like, I have this amazing restaurant opportunity.
You were still in DC?
I was still in DC.
Thinking about moving?
I was thinking about moving back to New York or San Fran to open up a restaurant, and then I met up with him, and he was this South African white dude named Mufasa, and he was the regional food and beverage director for the Intercontinental Hotel Group. So he took me to the site where they were building the hotel, and he's like, "This can be yours."
So you might be too young or haven't really spent time in DC around that particular time, but that used to be the spot where all the nightclubs were.
Yeah,
it used
Zanzibar,
to be like Zanzibar, H2O, like
Phillips, and all that. I've heard about it.
Put your Pradas on.
Yeah.
You can hop on 295.
That's funny.
So it took you, like, you had to get into like a rhythm of like trying to figure out how to make Kith and Kin work. And
exactly.
some of your experiences from Sean Bijou were brought.
They didn't translate. It didn't translate into it, you know, and I had to let go a little bit in order for it to be successful. So I don't know if it's always compromising, because once I started letting go a little bit and focusing on other things, the restaurant started to become successful.
Okay.
So it's not about compromising who you are. It's really adapting to the situation. Or else, if you don't compromise who you are, there won't be a situation.
Is Steve Stout visit yet? Or?
No. No, he is not.
I wonder if the story got back to him.
I wonder. Yeah. It'd be good to hear from him. See if we can do that at those parties.
You still down?
Still down.
So now they're making a movie,
Yeah.
which is gonna be ill. Tell us about that.
It came out from the book. You know, we sent the galley around. I think you got a copy of the galley when we sent it out, and then production companies started hitting up, the agencies in LA. It was like, who's representing this guy? Who has the rights to the life rights to this book? And I went out there and met with all of them. And
Did you meet with Lakeith yet? Or
Yeah.
Do you feel like he can play you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So who could they pick that would like piss you off? Like, what if they were like,
I'm not gonna say that.
We're gonna make your film, and little Bow Wow's gonna play you. Tyrese is gonna be
Baby Part 2.
Is that a scary thing for you, or is it like?
I would trust the process in these things like this. This is meant to be. I always thought my life would be played in a movie. I always thought it, but I didn't know how I was gonna get there. So I'm trusting the process. So if Bow Wow wanted to play me, maybe that's his big breakout movie. I don't know.
Like how the OJ story brought Cuba back before Cuba took itself back out the fold.
Exactly. So I don't know. If it was Bow Wow, I'd be honored to see my life just play out, honestly.
Yeah. Word. So tell everybody where they can get the book at and where they can come see you while you're here in New York.
So you can get the book anywhere books are sold. Any online platform, any bookstores, the small boutique bookstores as well. They always need love. So anywhere books are sold, you can buy Notes from a Young Black Chef.
It's a great read, and I think it's very necessary. Thank you a lot for coming on.
Yeah, man. Thank you. It's a pleasure.